Yo, it's another Boss Mule Showcase video. This time, it's the Luminous. The Luminous has given me a very positive experience so far in training and bossing, to the point where it's almost brain dead, but requires a little bit of skill once I was able to get a basic understanding of the class. In case you didn't know about the gimmick of Luminous, it's basically swapping between two forms, light and dark. And as you attack using the corresponding skill depending on the form you're currently in, you will fill up a gauge and soon enter equilibrium state that lets you spam stronger skill for duration, then swapping to the other form. Kind of a back and forth cycle, or how I like to simply think of it. Dark is for bossing, and light is for mobbing, and equilibrium is everything. So, moving on, I will explain my opinions and experience about Luminous. First off, bossing as a Luminous is insanely strong in the equilibrium state. While in equilibrium, Luminous gets a massive power spike in their damage and mobility as you're able to spam Ender, which does a heck of a lot of damage and lines, and best of all has a 100% crit rate with a 40% IED built in. Insane bossing skill that Luminous has, and be able to use the gate as they're summoned to deal a decent amount of damage, though not at a very fast interval. Otherwise, in light form, Luminous are very weak, as using Reflection feels quite slow and doesn't do as much damage. Unfortunately, Reflection will probably be the only skill that you will use in light form in order to build up a gauge, as it does seem to do better at it, and it just sucks in light form. However, in dark form, Luminous are then significantly better at bossing, as the main skill Apocalypse actually does quite a lot of damage and has a fair range to be able to kite some bosses. Also, it is a lot easier filling up the gauge with the help of the hyperscale passive, so you won't be in dark form for quite long. Since Luminous will be swapping between each forms quite often, I felt that it is much more ideal to stay in equilibrium state as long as possible. So to be able to make it longer, it's better to get as much buff duration as possible. Fortunately, the other 5th job skills, Baptism and Aether Conduit, are used quite often in bossing in either form since they do have a low cooldown and does get enhanced during equilibrium, with Baptism getting its cooldown cut with every ender hit and Aether Conduit hitting 4 sides. So pretty much very good bossing. First thing with Luminous is pretty good too, but personally I do have difficulties with getting the timing of entering equilibrium to bind and burst, with some instances where I entered equilibrium a little bit too early and the boss disappearing before I can bind it, which made me lose some time on equilibrium. But if done successfully, it's actually a huge chunk of damage being thrown at the boss, which is also very satisfying to look at. Fortunately, even if I do lose some time in equilibrium, there is a hyper skill that instantly puts Luminous back into equilibrium, but only for 20 seconds and not affected by buff duration. So super strong, but kind of difficult at times with getting the timing right to do the optimal damage. The utilities that a Luminous has is a heal that can heal party members at a pretty good percentage, and a bind that lasts 10 seconds, but this is also Luminous iframe and has quite a long cast animation for it. Though I guess this kind of makes up for the longer iframe duration. Also a party buff that increases party members' magic attacks, so unfortunately this does nothing for the non-mages class. So utility wise, it's okay, but not that good. Now, training as a Luminous is mad insane and super brain dead. Even in pre-5th job, it's already pretty insane. While in training, I usually stay in light form and spam Reflection while teleporting left and right. And I gotta say, this skill really makes Ice Lightning's Chain Lightning look like a joke, with how insane the range is seeing it bounce to other mobs, even on mobs 3 to 4 platforms above or below you. It almost feels like a full map attack. Also, with the help of the 3rd job toggle skill, Equilibrium Liberation, it allows you to stay in light or dark form for as long as you want, unless you were to use an Equilibrium skill, which then it will swap you. Honestly, a great utility for a lazy grinding experience. However, I do know there are some people that prefers to use the Equilibrium Gate training method, which is going to Equilibrium to use their 5th job skill, Gate of Light, which can cover a huge portion of the map for around 30 seconds or more depending on their level, while they train on the other half of the map. I can understand this method is good for really large map like maps in Moraz, but I personally don't like it, as I don't really like going into dark mode to build more gauge while training. So training as a Luminous is insanely good, and even with low funding, a Luminous will be able to do just fine. Now to the things I dislike while playing Luminous is the cast speed for all Luminous skills are very slow, and really needs attack speed, inner ability, and green potion to actually perform better. There's even a noticeable end lag when using the skills, leaving me slightly vulnerable at times and getting hit by bosses as I can't teleport out of range. Especially when binding the boss, there's already a long cast animation for it and it really feels like I've lost 3 seconds worth of the bind timer. Even when cycling with Baptism, which also has a long startup cast animation, the amount of time to deal burst damage feels very short within the bind. Adding along with the slow cast speed, it also makes Luminous a very grounded class since you can't cast any skills while in the air or jumping, which I don't like. Another thing is that buff duration being one of the core stats for Luminous is already a difficult or very time consuming stat to get more of. There are only a few sources to get buff duration, which is from inner ability, Legion Grid, Mechanic Legion Block, and trade. While I do have access to some of these already, a newer player will have to take some time to build up their Legion grid for buff duration, and the other sources using events if they want to maximize their Luminous as a main or boss meal. Though even to this video, I am still trying to get a good buff duration as a second line on inner-ability. Very luck based indeed. Then this may be a personal problem, but funding the Luminous with nodestones took away more than I expected. Part of the reason was trying to get the perfect boost nodes, and Luminous has a lot of useless skills in their kit. Luminous only needs to boost these 3 skills, and I was able to get 1 perfect boost node, but couldn't get a second one, so I had to resort to using 3 slots as boost nodes. Kind of unlucky, and I don't really want to spend more. Overall, Luminous is good as a boss meal, since it has pretty good damage in bossing until you swap into light form. Insane training and mobbing. Survivability and utilities are not that good. Difficulty in playing one is easy to learn. Funding one is above average, in my opinion, since you do need attack speed and ability if you want to perform better, and that can cost up to like 2 to 5 bill in magic circulators. And having buff duration as a second line is optional, but preferred. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to say about Luminous as a boss meal up to Loveless and Damien. If you have more questions about my experience with the class or want some other advice on the game, feel free to leave a comment and I'll answer as much as possible. And now for anyone that's curious about the gear that I'm using for my Luminous boss meal, stick around for the next section. I will explain some parts about the gears. So yeah, thanks for watching. Okay, so this is going to be the gear portion of the video, what I have on my Luminous boss meal. I will probably go through this pretty quick as I don't want to spend too much time on this. So feel free to like pause the video at any time. Two-line magic attack. Double line crit damage. This is pretty much one of my lucky items that I have right here. Usually I will go with like 1 line crit damage or 1 line all stat or main stat, or like decent skill. Because dang, that's pretty good, but this is like really lucky already. And 18% main stat should be pretty good enough potential, and 17 stars at least. Alright, and this is the ability that I have. And I did mention in the video, but I am trying to get like a second line buff duration, probably like around 20% maybe, or 15 to 20% should be good enough. But if I do get like a unique line of buff duration, yeah, that's really good already. And then there's the hyper stats. It's typical. Going on with the V matrix. This is what I have. Or you can go over here, and it's just the end result of it. The skills are probably just like not at high level, but I think they should be good enough. I think I pretty much only used like around 300 nodestones on this. 300 or to like 400, I lost count. And yeah, I had to end up using 3 boost nodes for it because I can't get like a second one. Alright, and also grab this arcane. Usually stop at 700 arcane force because I think that's good enough, but if I want to like pursue for more, get some more stats, because these are pretty much free stats, yeah, I could, but this is borderline good enough for me in that case. Oh yeah, and link skills, this is my bossing one that I use, and this is the mobbing one that I use. Oh yeah, and Legion. This is the buff duration Legion that I will be using. I think this is going to be like the standard buff Legion if I want for this. I think 8k should be good enough to get this. And I had to buy like a 3rd preset. And yeah, thanks for watching.